Hey everyone, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:32. I do want to mention that we are not streaming on YouTube right now. There's been a password change and what we're unable to access that password. So um, if you're hearing from people that they can't see us on YouTube, please just have them join the Zoom and we will work on posting this meeting on YouTube tomorrow. Uh, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't have any public in the room tonight. Do we have any public comment online? Okay, seeing none. Correspondence, Troy, do you have any?
I do not. I do not.
I do not either. So we're going to jump right into our policy review. I don't know, Chat, Lisa, Troy, how do you want to do this? Okay, who wants to lead us through?
I could lead us through if you'd like. No, because we sent them out electronically
They're in your board packet electronically.
and, wait, no, you're right. They're not. We simply printed paper copies of the agenda and the minutes and the special ed report just because it was not many pages. But we figured because there were so many pages of board policies that most of you had it electronic. Yeah, that we did have a couple full copies. That we do have here, Pat and Judy are sharing one, and Lisa has one. So if someone wants to look on the Lisa, they could, or they can pull up electronically.
Yeah, of course I'll share with you. Anna and James, do you have access?
Oh, you have copies.
You
Oh,
got
they
it?
have. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can check.
Okay.
So it's in your, oh, if you, yeah, we could share,
And then
we could
Deb
share
will share with
mine
me.
and you
Oh.
guys could share Lisa's.
Everybody's so flexible today.
All right.
Okay, so I could lead us through the first seven
That would be great.
policies, and I had created this nice, beautiful chart summarizing the changes. And so I'd like to focus our attention on that. And this is when Chet and I met, we communicated with Lisa, we really focused on the changes. And some of the policies are brand new, like we've never had them before, but all of these are mandated to have. And some of them are like updates. And and the second, the status column, it kind of tells you which is which, and I can review that. So the first policy, actually, the first three concern the library. And so the first one is on library material review and consideration. And it has to do with when someone wants to question a book that's in our library collection, there'll be a process by which they can do that. There's a form that they can use, and then there's a process where we pull a committee together to review that. And so if that happens, we're prepared. So that's what that is, and we need to have it. It's a mandated policy. It'll be a new one. And the second one has to do with the library collection and development and maintenance, which basically says there's a procedure, it outlines a procedure by which a certified library media specialist oversees the collection and adds to it, develops that collection, purchases new materials, taking into account various things. So you need to have one of those policies. And then the third library policy has to do with simply putting displays out, like in a case in front of the library, like at the elementary school, this nice display case, or like putting displays on the bookcases at Wheeler, like what books you're putting them up and things like that. And basically acknowledging that a certified library media specialist has the expertise to create appropriate displays, and would consider certain things in doing that. So that's what that policy says. And all of those we need, and the ones that are in your packet are the ones recommended by CABE. And we looked at these and we determined that we like the language of them. So we didn't feel like there was a need to change any of the language on those, right, Kat? Is that right?
Can't really get this mic over to me very well. Correct. Yeah, they were all pretty innocuous. Like there wasn't much that I would consider to be even slightly, concerning about any of it for any side or any perspective. It all is very vanilla.
Does anyone have any questions or any sort of discussion about those first three library policies?
I was wondering if we have an idea on who will be on like a committee
Yes.
to review the material.
Yeah,
It seems like
13.
in the back of that policy, it outlines who you would have to have, like the kinds of people that would have to make up that committee.
Yeah, it does say, it does list the people,
Okay, I see now.
the categories of people. Review committee.
I had that same question, Anna, when
Yeah,
I was
there it
looking
is.
it over and I was
On-
like, well, where is that?
Yeah, it's on
Yeah.
the second page of the,
Any other questions or discussion we want to have about those first three?
Did everyone have the opportunity to read them and go through them? Just because I think these are some of those policies that we always should have had. And that if people had the opportunity to read through them, consider them and not be concerned by them, I would suggest that we attempt to vote them in.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna
Tonight?
ask for a vote tonight. I
Okay.
think that we've had these now for over a week.
Well, and it's just, I know we had talked previously about the process for this,
Yeah.
and sometimes it was okay on a first read to be able to do it. And these are
Yeah.
just some of those mandatory ones that we should have.
Anna, did you have something?
The other thing I was gonna say was, I was just thinking about how in like Wheeler, we have both middle school and high school, and since we all use the same room, I don't know if they're gonna have like separate displays for what's more like geared towards middle schoolers versus high schoolers, because there can be some variations in what's age appropriate for, let's say, a 7th grader versus a 12th grader.
yeah, I think that the certified library media specialist is gonna have to consider the fact that it's a grade 7 through 12 school when they're creating displays and realizing that all the displays will be seen by all of the students. So they're really gonna have to consider that. I mean, that's a really good point. If it was just a high school, or just middle school, maybe the display would be more tailored to those grade levels, but because we have, it's gonna have to be just considered. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I know we've hired somebody new in the library, so they're kind of changing a lot of things up. Everything, just senior lounge, the whole room, they're kind of making adjustments. So I mean, that's definitely something we could talk about. Putting a display up in there. I'm not sure what the idea of for that yet, but they're definitely looking to make some changes in there, so that could be a good spot.
So since these are grouped together and it feels like these are sort of like yeah, like and not terribly controversial, do we want to do a vote on these so we can go ahead and move these forward for Troy? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to approve policy 1312.3 / 6161.12, 1312.4 / 6161.13, and 1312.5 6161.14.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. Perfect. Okay. Troy, you want to move on to 5114?
I would love to. So suspension and expulsion / due process was a policy that you actually updated a year ago, September 24. But laws change rapidly and then policies need to be updated. And this is an example of that. So the changes in this one are summarized here, where we have to now in the policy, it talks about we have to consider the impact of homelessness on a student's behavior during disciplinary hearings. That's one. The other part is we have, they separated it out about formal hearing / due process and expulsion procedures. It used to be one section of the policy, but it was a little bit confusing. So now they separated it out to add clarity to it. So I think it's an improvement. It also requires a functional behavior assessment to be done prior to placing any student in an out-of-district placement because of challenging behavior. Functional behavior assessment is also sometimes abbreviated FBA, and it's where special education staff look. It's usually your school psychologist will write this report, and they'll look at the behavior of a student and try to determine what are the antecedents, you know, what's kind of related to the behavior, and then come up with a behavior intervention plan to help the child. Okay, so that's what that is. And then it also includes the newest definition of bullying. And the state seems to change the definition of bullying about every other year. Okay, but now it's defined as unwanted and aggressive behavior among children in grades kindergarten to 12 inclusive that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. Now, that's a more narrow definition than before because now the state is calling a lot of other behaviors challenging behavior, right? So what was normally a lot of what was normally considered bullying is now challenging behavior, and this specifically is bullying. Okay, so we want to update with the correct definitions, and then it adds more guidance, comprehensive guidance for expunging disciplinary records from a student's record. And it used to stay pretty much, upon graduation from high school, an expulsion or suspension could be expunged. There's actually times earlier than graduation from high school, it can be removed, and it gives more specific, helpful language that adds clarity to all of that. So those are the changes for 5114.
Do we want to, does anybody have?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 5114.
I second.
Discussion?
So a couple of things on this that I would just want to add. I meant to bring this up to Troy ahead of time, and I apologize for this, but because we have pre-K in our schools, I don't know if we want to expand that. I know that the required definition by the state is kindergarten through grade 12. However, we actually service students pre-K through grade 12, and I don't know if that. Right. So in order to include our entire population of our school, I don't know if that would be something we want to do, or if the way that the state provides that definition, it can only be in that exact wording.
Yeah, that is a state definition of bullying now, and for us to change the definition that the state's using, I do not think would be a good idea. However, you make a good point that we have pre-K students, so I believe that their behavior could be considered challenging behavior, and often with a 3 or 4 year old, it's hard to start saying, all right, they are exhibiting bullying behavior.
Well, and it would not necessarily be that the 3 or 4 year old was bullying. It could be that there was a third grader bullying a pre-K kid. And then
among children.
And so that would be my concern. My concern isn't that the 3 year old knows how to effectively understand their process of bullying, but rather that if we had an older kid, I believe our pre-K are pretty solidly removed from the rest of the students, and it's not that huge of an issue, but it just seemed like an omission. But I also don't think we should change state language if this is what was passed in legislation. So we can certainly address that in regulation, and it doesn't need to be in policy. I just wanted to bring it up.
That's a good suggestion to address it in a regulation, like in the handbook that goes to parents and students.
Any other thoughts?
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question? Not so much about the policy. I'm fully aware and versed in this policy. Is the school's handling and process for bringing in or receiving bullying complaints, and the team that would then oversee that, your climate specialist, has that been updated to also effectively address this change in statute?
You guys approved the climate policy, I think, in January. And there is a new form along with that.
And it's in line with the language in the current statute?
Yes.
For at least the middle to high school, I know we did have each grade has a meeting, and Miss Saint Germain and Miss Reyes, like they tell them, so everybody was informed about the updated language of the policy, and we still have the app and the website in place, which is used for reporting. So at least I think on the high school, middle school level, it's definitely been updated.
Yeah, that's the anonymous reporting app, right? that you can-
That's correct.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from this pose? Okay. You want to take a vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? None? All right, thank you. 6171.
Okay, this one is on special education, and we do have a policy, 6171, that was updated in 2007. So this is a great opportunity to upgrade it. And the major change being that now the superintendent must provide the Board of Ed a report annually between June 1st and September 30th concerning special education programs in the school district, and the policy actually spells out what that needs to include. So I actually have that report for you tonight, later in the agenda.
Okay. Motion.
Make a motion to approve policy number 6171.
Second,
Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstained. Wonderful. 6159.
Okay, so 6159 is also a great opportunity to update our current policy that we adopted in 2007 concerning individualized education programs. Basically what it does is requires that we how we handle children who are of families of the armed forces. Okay, and it gives specific language about how you have to give consideration to those students, like when they move into town, and you have to take special care if they have their IEP following them. And if not, then you need to just quickly figure out the needs, put it into place without going through a whole necessary process. And just basically working closely with the families, because it's difficult for families to be relocated. And so it's basically tells the school you got to be flexible with military families when the student has an IEP. That's basically what it does.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve policy 6159.
I'll second.
Thanks, Chet.
You look like you have something to say.
Well,
He does.
no
I
matter,
do- I
well,
do
no matter what,
actually.
what should be said after we make the motion.
right,
though.
and that's
So
why
it's one of
I
those
was actually
things where-
waiting for someone to make a
Okay.
motion.
I
thought
sorry,
you
I was
were-
just
I
distracted
make the
because
No,
I was distracted because I was reviewing over the exact wording on the military aspect
Well,
of
your
it.
Right.
timing was
And-
perfect.
And all of a sudden I was like, whoop, okay, everything's paused.
Thank you. So-
thanks, Chet.
Ryan.
So, I mean, I'm just looking, I looked at the language, and I mean, typically this is, I understand that there's a need for the policy, but I think any district that's getting a student transferring in with an IEP should have a process in place to adopt that IEP. If they're not, that's negligent. So I mean, the fact that we're just updating what we already have, that's fine. But it just, I don't know, I'm shaking my head that it really.
It's truly, I think it's one of those policies that I like to hope we are doing this right no matter what, but there
Right.
are certainly districts in the state who may be under-resourced or have more significant numbers of military people moving in or other things that are happening that might cause that sort of thing to happen, but it still is mandated. So legally required, put it in.
Okay, any other discussion? All right then, all those in favor? Aye. Abstentions, we don't have any. Okay. 5118.2.
Okay, so this is a brand new policy that districts need to have, and it is new, really new. And it basically is about, it's military families, and whether the child has an IEP or not, it provides protections for the children of families of the armed forces. And so if they're required to move in the middle of the year, and that child somehow was able to stay in close to the school, that you allow them to continue the school year at the school in which they're at, so they don't have to disrupt their education. If they're in 11th grade and their family moves, you allow them to finish their whole 11th grade year and their whole senior year. And so there's a policy that's mandated by the state that we have to have it since that.
I make a motion to approve policy 5118.2.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to make a few comments on this because Troy and I talked about language on this. There is alternative language, and we went for a lot of it because we thought that the more we could give opportunity, most of the alternative language centered around the idea of extending the number of excused absences for students who had parents who were being deployed. So the idea that the school would extend an excused absence on the day before deployment, on the day returning from deployment, those types of things, just to be able to make that transition easier on military families. We do have a decent number of people with the Navy base nearby and Coast Guard and other pieces. So the idea that we would try and make things as easy as possible on families who had members who were leaving for overseas, who were going to be gone for extended periods of time. We just wanted to make sure that we gave as much as we could on that. We did not take one of the alternative language aspects because we felt like it was encumbered in the previous ones, or two. There were two of them that we felt were encumbered in the other ones, and so weren't really necessary because.
And are those the ones that you crossed out?
Yes.
Okay.
So the idea that visiting their parent with related to leave or deployment activities would be excused. We didn't want to put a number on that, and the other one didn't put a number on it. So we would rather not have to fill in a number on a blank and say, oh, you can have up to 4 days if your deployed parent happens to be nearby. No, take as many days as you can. If your parent has been gone for 6 months and now they're back for a week, we'll go for a week. And so we didn't want to create a number, and we thought that leaving it open was a much safer way to go. It's at the discretion of the superintendent, and we would just say, we're leaning toward being as lenient as possible in those situations. So.
Notice that this one just says kindergarten through 12 as well. So do we have a separate oh my gosh, I can't think of what I'm trying to say. Like a separate kind of system if they're like pre-K age. do they-
Attendance doesn't count in
Yeah.
pre-K.
That's what I'm gonna say.
But I do have one thing to say about this. I mean, you can excuse however many you want within guidelines of the state and with extenuating circumstances, right? I mean, this is one of those things that if your policy states it, it's fine. It doesn't matter. The state has already set up what constitutes chronic absenteeism or truancy. So therefore, even if that kid gets 18 of those excused absences, it still affects the school's numbers, but not theirs because the school doesn't have to take away the credit. At no point does the school actually have to take away credit due to absences, whether they are excused or not. That is a choice based on the policy that's written rather than even what the state says. So, I mean, whether or not it's just what our numbers look like in state reporting and then how we are then graded based on the number of absences or chronically absent students we have. We can excuse 25, of these days. That student's still gonna be chronically absent, and that's gonna reflect on the school itself, but we can still grant them that credit. So I think the number of absences excused is arbitrary. And
So then you would agree with not putting a number on it?
absolutely.
Okay.
Can I just ask for a clarification? I guess when I read it as, giving some leniency towards absences. But then when you explained it, Troy, I was almost thinking of it like if the student had to leave.
It's both.
It's both. Okay.
It's both.
So,
There's two pieces.
okay.
The
So
al-
I'm not confused.
the alternate,
Yeah.
the alternative language that I was talking about was specific to excusing absences of parents regarding to play. I was explaining it more extensively because it was alternate language. The main body of it, it has to do with the idea of allowing students, if parents are either deployed or transferred or moved, if they have like if they're set up here, they have a grandparent who lives here, their parents are moved to South Carolina, but they want to graduate from Wheeler and they have 6 months left. Automatically, they're allowed to do that sort of thing.
So I guess my question is, you don't have to provide alternative methods of schooling
No,
with this. Okay,
no, just to allow them to continue in
Just
what we
continue.
are
Okay.
providing.
okay. that's
It,
all I-
it does allow you to do that though.
Right.
So we can provide like you could do online classes as an option to have them still come back and graduate with their peers from here.
I'm good
So-
with that.
But could a parent then request that based on the way the policy is written?
The parent could request the ability to be able to have their kid participate in an online manner or to finish their credits in a different situation, but still be granted their diploma from here and come here to graduate. So they could actually technically be in a different place,
Mhm.
take online courses, the equivalent of what they would be required to have to graduate from here, and then come back here and walk in graduation with their peers and have a diploma from Wheeler.
So I'm going to add another wrench to this question. Then does that have to be an accredited online course, like an Acellus Academy or something like that? Or can they do something that's non-accredited?
Well, Brian, if you read through the policy, you could probably fit that. So I would, give me a second to look back through it.
Chet, I'm not seeing where it says about online. You're not saying it requires us to do online. You said we could, right?
It is an option.
Yeah.
But it was also. And honestly, we did this a couple weeks ago now. But well, there was a testing one as well. Where's the testing one? I may have read that elsewhere. I thought that the online was a piece of it.
Is this one that we want to table and look to see if there are things that we want to add in?
I guess, I don't know if, I just want there to be options, I guess, and how the wording of that, if we can find it, it would be great. So that there isn't a learning loss, but there are options. And however that may look, should be decided by the
Yeah,
regulations.
I wonder if this is another case where the options could be in more of a regulation or and not the policy, because the policy is general enough where it will allow us to be flexible with families and say, hey, look, I know you're leaving. Here's a course online to do this, and it will for your last credit. It doesn't preclude us from doing any of that, this policy, but to put it in there. I'm not opposed to putting it in there, but I think it gives us the flexibility.
But where
Options.
is that wording? That's where I just want to see the wording of like,
If
it-
it's there.
yeah, the flexibility is there. I guess that's where I'm missing it.
So I may have been thinking back to the fact that we had a discussion on the idea that they could take their final exams elsewhere
Yeah. that's
through,
right,
and I think that I was confusing that with the idea of taking online courses because I was considering the fact that even if they were not here, they could take their final exams elsewhere and have that count. Because that's on the exam piece of things where it says that you can have alternate testing and testing requirement and that those pieces would be in play. Yeah, I mean, we can certainly look at it and look to add something regarding online courses, but I also don't think, we don't have anything precluding us from doing it. But if the board would prefer to have it written in that that is something that we offer as an option, it just would,
Of course, there's also a cost when you have to,
Right.
enroll an online course. We have a few people taking AP French, and it's costing the district. So there's a cost associated with it. So to put it in there as an option, I mean,
If the policy allows the flexibility to handle it at the building level or within the regulation, I wouldn't have a problem with just keeping it simple and doing it.
I agree.
I have a question on this.
I guess,
I'm looking, maybe I'm a little wrong here, but online course, half of the stuff we do is run through Google Classroom and online, like 90% of the stuff. So if someone's out sick for a week, that's what they do. I know this is longer term stuff, but would that be an option for them to do all this stuff through Google Classroom like we did when we were in COVID, stuff like that?
That's a great
Actually, I
question.
believe the state has taken a stance on that. I do believe that the state has actually kind of provided guidance on that, and that really does not serve as an appropriate alternative to an in-person education. And they have kind of pushed back on schools using that as an option over the past year and a half, 2 years.
right, that's for taking a whole course.
Taking
that
a whole
way.
course
That's not
that
just
way.
being out sick for a week or two.
I understand that there's probably a cost for the online classes, but I also think, I mean, their parents are paying the cost for being in the service, so we should maybe look at allowing that option for the online,
I guess
or
if-
have it written in
if
for online.
if we're following what Lisa said, there's nothing that says that we can't, and that situation could be evaluated by the
Case by case.
superintendent and by the building administrators. But if we add something to our policy, we've then locked ourselves in because we're saying that we are doing it. And we don't know from time to time what our resources will look like or what's changing. And so if it's not something, I think that we have adopted the idea that less is more in our policy, and that space in the regulation and the idea that we're allowing decisions to be made and we're not locking ourselves in.
I'm just concerned that the regulation then costs the taxpayers more down the road if all of a sudden there's a number of these students who do it and we have to pay for these online courses.
Well, that would be the problem if it's in the policy, right?
Right, but even in the
Yeah.
even in the regulation, because then it's out of board control, because the regulation is controlled by the building administrator, not the
Sure,
board.
but couldn't it just be that they could explore options? Because
They
each
could.
kid might have a different
Correct.
need.
I guess where I felt confused reading this, and that's where I just would like some clarification, because I didn't get anywhere that you could do online, you couldn't. And so if I'm confused, I don't know if others would feel confused reading this policy, and it could just be me, but I just would like it to state that any option could be a possibility. I don't know if I want to pigeonhole it to online or
Right.
one or the other, but very clearly state that any option is.
So maybe this is the one that we say, this was a first read today, and we have some questions, and Troy can look into some other options and come back to us.
I
with some
can,
thoughts.
but it is a mandated policy that we need to have, so it can't
Can-
take too long.
can I suggest an option?
Sure.
Can we approve the policy this evening as written with the understanding that we will come back and adjust it, and that way we put our mandated policy on the books so that we're not sitting without one that we're supposed to have. And then if we would like to adjust it moving forward, then we adjust it at the next meeting, so we can call for it, put it in the agenda for next meeting automatically. We'll look at it again next meeting. But in the meantime, we have that mandated policy on the books, just because I think that this is an important cleanup piece for our overall process.
Can I just make one request, or at least suggestion? I see in this policy, and I don't know the page, but it's educational opportunities for military children continued. It's the first bullet point. It says receiving schools must honor placement of students in all courses from sending school. The sending school, these include, but are not limited to, honors, IB, AP, vocational, career pathway courses if they're offered. I would like to make sure that that would extend to all students coming in from out of district as well. I think we should not just take that opportunity away from, or give it to one group of students, but not others. It seems like it's creating a true lack of equity there. And I don't know if the practice has been to honor that coming in from others, but I would want to make sure that how it gets addressed within the school.
But that seems almost self-evident to me. If you come in and you were in an AP course, you enter into an AP course and.
It
the
doesn't
program
always happen at the
here.
high school level that they honor that coming in from another school. So I don't know how it's handled here. So I just want to make sure that that practice would be standard across the board for all students coming in. Based on this policy, since the state's saying we have to do it for one group, we should be doing it for all.
What
So-
happens if we don't have the AP class?
Well, then you don't have to, if you're able to, like, if you don't have AP French, right? You don't have to create that course for someone coming in if you don't have, AP, or ready, a better example, you don't have AP Latin.
I don't see the
it just-
term if able to.
It says if those courses are offered
Offered.
in the receiving school. So if they're
Oh, I
not
just see
offered, then you don't put them
receiving
in it.
Schools must honor the placement.
Yeah,
in
honor
all
the
courses.
placement.
Last line though,
If they're
If-
offered.
I see
if
the
they're
F,
offered.
okay.
So we don't create courses for people coming in. But if we have, that's why I thought
Or
that would
levels.
just, that seemed like a no-brainer to me that would happen anyway. That if a student's coming in and they're like, oh, I was in this level course in my
Right.
previous school, that they would enter
I was
that
in
level
honor
course here.
Spanish. You should be in honor Spanish. You don't have to create an IB course because obviously that's a lot of work and
Right.
wouldn't be practical. But I would want to make sure that the way that it's handled for other students coming in, that it would be handled the same way. It's not. Since
Troy, is that
this-
how it's handled?
I believe that's how it's handled.
Okay.
That is how it's handled. But however, every high school has a schedule. And sometimes there's scheduling conflicts, and
Mhm.
different scheduling conflicts in different high schools.
Right.
So, I mean, the kids sometimes, in certain high schools have to choose between French 4 and band,
Mhm.
for example, right? So, and if they transfer school, well, maybe they can get in both French 4 and band, but they can't get in their AP biology class they were taking
Right.
because it's the same time as band. You know what I mean? So-
So they would have to make
So
those
you got those
choices.
kind of, especially in small schools, you got a lot of scheduling conflicts.
And those are choices our students have to make every
they do.
year anyway.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they're coming in.
Yeah, and I think it might, I mean, you're right, and we should do that, and I don't know if we may have another policy that addresses that, or one that could address that, but this policy is specifically for military children. So I'd hate to dilute this particular policy by saying, oh.
But Brian, you'd like to see this reflected somewhere else.
I would want to make sure that it's there for all, because if this state policy is allowing it for one, we should be allowing it for all of our students across the board at that point.
When we're talking about students coming in, are we talking about like before, like while the new year's starting, or are we talking about mid-year transfers?
In the way this language is, it's at any point. It could be, they transfer in August, 2 weeks before, or they come in November, right before Thanksgiving break. It would, or even April, they would still be placed in the appropriate class based on this language.
So I would just say for the other students where it's not the specific mandate, so like non-military children, if they're coming in mid-year and they're expecting to be placed in an AP course, one, we have to consider how many students are taking our courses, because I know this year we have a lot of students taking APs and they're completely full, where there's to the point where we had to, in my AP World class, we had to add a lunch table, like one of the tables we use for lunch, into the room where it wasn't there beforehand, and each school has a different pacing level. So I know I'm talking to some friends who go to attend a different school, they're taking the same AP bio class that I am, except I'm starting unit 3, they're still on unit 1. So if we're at a higher level or we're at a faster pace, the student would be expected to make up the difference if they're not being instructed in that. And I think we just need to just kind of take that into consideration based on our resources and not only the student's expectation if they are coming into those levels.
So I think the state is telling us that we don't have a lot of opportunity to take anything into consideration. So the state's saying for military transfers, we have to offer, if we offer AP Bio and we have a kid coming in mid-year that takes AP Bio and wants to take it, we've got to put that kid in AP Bio.
Yeah, that part I understood. That's why I started
Yeah.
it by saying non-military, just
Yeah.
sorry.
But I don't know. And I think what Brian's saying is we want to offer every kid that same
If you're offering it
choice.
to one, it's about equitable education.
Right.
And, you know, we have to find accommodations for students whose parents get transferred out based on this policy, right? To make sure that we can provide them with that education, we should be able to find the accommodation in a classroom for a student that transfers in.
But I think you're totally right that
Mhm.
that any kid coming into the school is going to have to struggle with where they're at, you know, and I guess that's a conversation with that particular instructor, with the administrators, and whether or not that kid chooses that they want to continue. I think it's just important that I guess the option is there. So do we want to do what Chet suggested? So, and then I'll just put it on the agenda for the 24th for any potential amendments. Okay. Is that okay? I think we already have a motion.
We had a motion.
Yeah, so all those in favor? Aye. Abstain? Opposed? Okay, good. Did it backwards. Bylaws? Chet, do you wanna, you pick these, you wanna lead us?
Sure.
through?
Well, the next three.
Yeah.
And I'd like to be able to, you know, this seems like a very long process.
Yeah, we're back on the bylaw train.
So we have a couple of different ones that I gave you, 9140. 9140, I think the big change between what ours states and what comes from the CABE core manual at the moment is ours has a lot of weird use of the word negotiable. I don't know if anyone else noticed that while reading through it, but it was a very confusing process for
I
me.
wondered what we were negotiating.
Well, so apparently the board representatives piece of this is centered, when I was researching it, is centered around negotiations. And so largely what it is that there must be board representatives on our negotiating committee, even if we have given the job of negotiating to the superintendent. The CABE version of it simply states, instead of all of the other pieces, at the end, it says one or more members of the administrative staff may also be appointed by the superintendent to serve on the board's negotiating committee. And then and that's the only mention of negotiations in that. Everything else has to do with it's just a simple statement in the CABE version of the Board of Education designates the superintendent of schools as the official representative of the board on matters of common concern as determined by the board. However, the final decision on any such matter shall be made by the board. So essentially, if we want to take some piece of what is considered our purview away from the superintendent, then that is something that is allowed, or we are allowed to present representatives through the board to be a piece of any of those actions. I like the CABE version, but again, we have very little leeway on the bylaws. We have to leave them out there for at least 4 weeks. So it's one of those where that would be my perspective on it, is to simply take the CABE one because ours is odd.
Yeah,
Um,
wording's weird.
and I'm not sure why that's our wording, but I have to be honest, some of these other ones, and this is what I may do moving forward is send out the bylaws I'm considering and ask, because a lot of these were picked by other members of the board for why they wanted to have them on the docket for consideration. Because we went through, it was like, which ones do you want to pull? And then we did a huge consent agenda on a bunch of them. And then the other ones are the ones that I'm slowly working my way through bringing to the board. But some of them, I don't know why they're here.
Right.
So the filling vacancies one was just revisited by the board. I was not sure why it was put back up as one that was possibly controversial or wanted discussion. It is not because of me. So if whoever it is had a concern that had a concern regarding this policy that was adjusted back in 2021, anyone remember why? No. I know why we did it in 2021, but why did somebody pull this?
I don't know, but it's
For
a great-
consideration.
It's maybe Although that person would have pulled it quite some time ago now,
Right.
so that person might not even.
It could have been Alex who pulled it. I mean.
Right, so I guess it's timely though, because there's going to be, so my position will be appointed in a few weeks. So I guess if there's anything, I mean, this is sort of what we've always done. I think it's worked. I think we've done it a few times in the past few years, and I think it's a good practice.
But yeah, so if people have concerns, it was when I kind of looked at it, I was like, oh, this is funny because we're going to be filling a
Right,
vacancy.
we're doing this. Yeah.
And we just finished, I feel like we filled a variety of vacancies recently. Like it seems like every election has another person that was filled in a vacancy who's
Yeah.
now up for election. So it does seem like it's rotating through, but I also, I like the wording of this bylaw, and have no concerns with it. So yeah, it's up for consideration because it was one of the ones that was mentioned as needing to be up for consideration. If people have concerns about it or questions about it, if you want to email me, I'm welcome to adjust or look at the way that it could be reworded or see the way that it's worded in other spaces. If you look at the CABE one, what's up, it does work off of minority representation in the CABE core policy as opposed to the way we've done it, which is just represent, the whoever leaves, it's a replacement from the same party that had endorsed the one who's leaving. I mean, I personally like that, but I don't know how the board feels moving forward. So if there's concerns about that and people want to revisit it, I can set up a variety of different language options and we can discuss it as a board and have that discussion. But if everyone's kind of looking at it going, I don't know why we were concerned about it, then I will just push that 4 weeks out and we'll vote on it.
So we spent a lot of time on this in 2021 because there was a feeling from some board members that said if there's a vacancy, we should decide, and we maybe should collect applications, and we maybe should conduct interviews. And then there were a few of us that said, well, wow, it's not our board, it's the board of the town, and that it feels a lot more comfortable if the way we do this looks as close to an election as possible. This is sort of how our elections look. And so
and then that person comes up for election, because otherwise what you end up with is the possibility of having that person not endorsed
right,
moving forward into the
and
next
it could be
election.
really awful, right? So somebody
then-
puts 2 years of really good work in, and then
Or 6 months.
right, I guess depending on where that happens, right, and then isn't going to be endorsed. And so this seemed, and again, it felt weird that we in some way would choose who we think fits with us, and that doesn't seem like it's part of the process. So I guess it gives the board an opportunity to say no thanks, but I think we would be as a board pretty accountable to the public if we were to not take the recommendation. So I like the wording.
All right. So I'm just going to keep going because
Go.
if somebody has a question on that one or a concern, please shoot me an email. I can look for different language and although I would not necessarily want to change it, I will come back with appropriate language that we can
Yeah.
have the discussion at the next board meeting of, do we like this language or this language? Board member development.
Chet, this one's wild.
In what sense do you mean, Stephanie?
I read this and it's like, what is he even trying to say? And I think now, actually, Troy, you I think probably are more clear on this than I am. There's actually, I think, a statute that dictates what our education should look like.
Yeah, new board members are supposed to be, attend a training for, what is the role of a board member. And CABE offers that at the CABE convention in November. They were supposed to offer it at another time, and we've actually inquired about that, and they said, we really never got anything together this summer, and as long as you're asking about it, they'll cover, basically, right, Brandon? Something like that.
Yeah, along those lines, and they adjusted their training this year, which did not include what would be considered required training. So the next one they recommended was going to be, I believe, mid to late November, which would take place after the election. And then we would also potentially be able to get any new members
That's
involved in
great.
that one as well.
I think the fact that we start with the school board in modern America faces a difficult set of challenges is just like, it's just the strangest wording. So I would be in favor of sort of striking this.
The CABE version of it starts instead with the complexity of Board of Education membership demands opportunities for development, study, and training for board members, which I think is a wonderful phraseology, as opposed to
It's all very, it just feels very dramatic. But yeah, this one needs to be like updated. This is an overhaul for sure.
well, and I will send out the CABE version of it. I have to be honest, when it came down to it, what I realized as I was going to put together something on these things was that I was not entirely certain what people had as concerns, and therefore it made it hard for me to address concerns coming into it because they weren't necessarily my concerns that I was bringing forward in a policy form or a bylaw form. And so I think moving forward, what I'm going to do is send out the bylaws that I'm looking to do and request that whoever has an issue with that respond to me independently and state what concerns they had with that bylaw so that then I can address those in the presentation that I make of those bylaws to the board. Previously, the other one seemed pretty clear what the issues were. I mean, we had that like manifesto one and some really kind of off the wall bylaws that were in there. And so like, I felt like those I could look at and be like, whoa, okay, this is where we need to go on this. The CABE versions of both the first, the 9140 and the 9240, I think are really good. And I'm a fan of the middle one as written. But I'll send out the CABE versions of those other two. And if people are okay with those, again, the board member professional development, it's very vague on the CABE one, which is kind of nice because it's just
Probably on
basically
purpose. Yeah.
if there are trainings available, then the superintendent will make certain to inform board members, right? Or if you know there were some things because there's language in there regarding reimbursement, and we've tended to stray away from any form of reimbursement when it comes to those sorts of things. Like none of us are going on long workshop weekends where we're going to be using money that's taxpayer money. So I would strike that out of the CABE one, I think, if I were to put it in, because I don't think any of us are looking for any form of reimbursement for things that we're doing. But
regarding the trainings, I would like to add, there is the option to have a CABE representative come here, sit with a meeting, sit with all the individual board members and advise as to what practices y'all are doing, what you're not doing, what could be better, and what you're all doing great. So there is the option to have somebody come here and provide trainings. I don't know if that would be at a specific cost or not to the town.
And that's Nick, right? Nick's done that.
Well, it probably would be Nick.
and he's great. So
All right. Well, thank you, Chet, for your work on this.
that felt like a very convoluted and almost useless
No, it was
piece of
good.
time,
It's
but
good. But I think you make a good point that if you send them out ahead of time and say, if you have concerns, let me know and I'll look for some language. That seems to make your job a little, it streamlines it. All right. New business. Troy, do you want to talk to us about school opening?
Sure. We had our full staff meeting, our beginning, we call it convocation. We introduced all new staff. We recognized staff who would finish their team program. That's the teacher education and mentoring program that teachers usually do in the first 2 years of their teaching career when they have a mentor. We recognize people who earned tenure. Those are people who are starting their 5th year with us or starting their 3rd year with us after having attained tenure at another district. So we recognize those people. We also had people stand who had certain years of service in the district. But then when we got up to 25 years of service, And we have 10 of those people. We actually got them little pins that said 25 and called them up and recognized them individually for 25 or 29 years of service. And then we had other pins that said 30. And we had 5 of those people come up. And I'm going to tell you who those people are, just because I think it's worthy of mentioning. So Deb Karpinski, a paraeducator, was one. Joan Quinn, our computer teacher at the elementary school. Jane Servideo, 4th grade teacher at the elementary school. Alan Buck, maintenance person. And Larry Murphy, custodian. 47 years. Wow. 47. And I tell you, when we introduced him and he came up, he got a standing ovation from the whole staff. And it was just a real special moment. And it was a real celebration of the dedication that all of our staff have in North Stonington. And in the fact that when people are here, they tend to stay. Because it's a nice place to work, it's a nice place to learn for kids. And we're really thankful for the dedication of all those people. Then I can't help myself. I have to give some message. So once again, I did that. I didn't dress up this time. But I did give out these hammers to everybody. And I told the story, and I'm not going to tell the whole story right now. But basically the message is, why use a hammer when you can use a nail gun? All right. So, and I suggested that they squeeze their hammer during the year and ask themselves, is there a better way when they're thinking about teaching a lesson? Because is there a better way to increase student learning and motivation than the way I did it a year ago or, a couple of years ago? Is there a better way to do it? Like, do I have what I need to do it the better way? Do I have an interactive whiteboard that I can create a lesson that's going to really engage the students? Can I have kids actually talk about their math with each other, which is the new Bridges math program in elementary school? And it's amazing when you walk into a 1st grade class or 2nd grade class and the kids are talking to each other about their math, and it helps them learn. So it's not just about technology, it's about techniques, right? So are there better tools and techniques to use to do the job more efficiently and more productively? And the job is teaching and the kids learning, and can we do it better? So anyway, that was a symbol to remind people to ask themselves, is there a better way to do this? So that was that. On the PD days, we had, as you know, some smartboard training. It was kind of an initial training. We need to do more. And we're going to hopefully schedule that soon. We had securely training. Securely does multiple things, but one of the things that allows teachers to see what's on students' monitors, on their computer monitors. A lot of goal setting going on, a lot of Google Classroom training and setup, a lot of planning with colleagues on units, rubric development on the vision of the graduate, Bridges math training. The elementary school, we had an in-person trainer versus we had a lot of virtual trainers over the years, but this person was in person, and it was just the feedback was just tremendous, and people got much more out of having an actual physical person there. And safety care training, a lot of the prior educators went through that, and there was some time to do some of the required trainings on computers, like mandated reporter training, sexual harassment, bloodborne pathogens, that type of thing. Now, the actual opening of school, there was a lot of teamwork that went into that. There's so much we did with technology, with multi-factor authentication, MFA, that staff now have to either use their cell phone and they get a code and they plug it in so that the computer will let them into our system, our network, but that requires some getting used to. And there were actually some real glitches with it too that needed to be worked out. But our IT department, which includes multiple people that learn, were on the scene. We set up a separate email just it@nosto.org, and multiple people were getting that, so people could respond pretty quickly. And then we appreciate the patience of our teachers and our paraeducators, because even though we had a lot of help, the help couldn't be everywhere at one time, and there was a lot of needs. But things have really worked out, and the administrators really played a huge role in creating a smooth opening. And I can't thank them enough for their dedication and troubleshooting and communication. And honestly, my central office staff also did a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that the school year started smoothly. The first payroll went off smoothly, and all of those types of things, people who are on insurances, and there's just a lot to it in starting a school year. So it was tremendous teamwork. I'm really proud of all the staff, and honestly, the students, they all appear happy to me, and the staff actually appear happy, and I think things are going really well. We did Chromebook distribution and insurance collection, and we're still working on that, specifically for sixth grade. With electronic forms worked really well at the beginning of the year. We tried to decrease the number of papers that parents have to fill out at the beginning of the year. The Cub Club has 60 students enrolled, so that's going well. And even the pickup at the elementary school is going smoothly. I watched it the first day. I timed it. It was exactly 13 minutes, and then it's gotten quicker since then, and they got multiple people checking out the kids. So that's how I think the opening of school went. I'm really pleased. Maybe Anna or James, you have something you want to add about a student perspective on how was school opening for you and your peers?
Yeah, I think it's been good so far. A lot of new opportunities. For instance, internships. I'm doing an internship along with 3 or 4 other students, which is pretty new to Wheeler. So us 4 are in school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we're on the job, depending on what that is, every Tuesday and Thursday, in the real world, getting experience. So that's a great opportunity. Very thankful. Miss St. Germain has been a great help, all the staff and everything, to get that set up, because it was so new. But that's been great. A lot of school trips for the senior class and stuff like that. They're putting together, going to Block Island this month, Six Flags next month. So they're doing a lot for us. A lot of great things, the new things. Wouldn't call it a con, but the app has been a little controversial. I think that's the biggest thing. Just with students getting used to that, signing out, going to the bathroom, the new app, how they have to sign out, wait for the code. It's been new, and I wouldn't say it's bad at all. I would say it's definitely going to take some getting used to, just because it's never been a thing. But I think it's a good thing, And I would say that's about it.
Yeah, I definitely know that the secure lease, it's definitely a little controversial. I think as time's going on, people are getting more used to the idea. I know it's definitely a favorite for the teachers, and I do think it is really helpful to know where people are. I actually haven't used it yet. Just, I don't know, just timing hasn't worked, but I know there's some people who use it a lot, some people who don't know their lunch code and they always forget it, and they're like, you're sitting there for a few minutes trying to remember. But I do think that usually it's the coming back. Sometimes people forget to sign back in.
Mhm.
So there's been it's been like 10 minutes. They've been back in class for 7, but then they're getting flagged. And then usually it's like a good fix. I think if the schedule is I think now it's gone where people are pretty used to it. But I know like the first few days with the Monday schedule, it's a little bit awkward.
Yeah, that's when all classes meet on Mondays, right?
Yes, yes. I think a lot of people will say that the worst part is it's like a lot of different things throughout the day, so it can be a little hard to transition. And then the homework, because you have for those first 4 classes, your homework's due immediately the next day. So then it's like sometimes timing, but I definitely think as time goes on, it'll become a lot more fluid. The French class is going really well. I'm in the room with them, but I'm doing my online health class. So they're definitely, they're glad to be doing AP French, because I know that they were really nervous at the end of last year about possibly not being able to do it. So it's been good. We're all getting our work done. But yeah, I definitely think the senior class has been working really hard on making sure that we get those last few fundraisers. I know we have a car wash coming up on Sunday. I don't know what it's from. It's definitely, it ends at 3, but it's like, I think it starts before then. I mean, obviously it starts before then. I think it's like, I know it's definitely from 11 to 3, but I feel like it starts before that. And we were at the tag sale, going to, yeah, we're just, I think schools are trying to pick up some of the underclassmen. I know there was the juniors were also selling something at the tag sale. So everybody's excited. The car wash is at the rec. It's like in the rec area. So yeah, I mean, everybody's been, pretty good about getting started in school. So yeah, I think everybody's pretty excited.
Sounds like you have had a good start to your senior years. That's great. Anything else, Troy?
Nope.
Questions for Troy? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to the special education evaluation report.
Okay, so in your packet, you had this report. And in it, this is the policy that you just adopted, 6171. And it spells out the details of what this report needs to be. So April Christensen, our Director of Special Services, did a really nice job in putting this together for me and reviewing it with me. So I have a pretty good understanding of everything in it. But basically, there's 4 parts. You're supposed to report on community-based partnerships, any contracts or memorandum of understandings you have with those groups, workforce development programs, attrition data for certified, non-certified staff in special education, and then recommendations for program improvement. So we have all that here. So for section 1 on community-based organizations, we have several partnerships, and it's like ESY, it's extended school year. That's where it says school served in the 4th column. So there's a summer program. They came in and they did just basically a guest speaker at the Nature Center for that. And then on the next page, they got Niantic Children's Museum, where they came in for the summer, but they also come in during the school year at the elementary school and do some activities for all kids in pre-K through 6, not just kids who have IEPs. The Giving Closet is another community partnership we have. It's in this building, but we do have students that volunteer and spend some time in there and develop life skills through that work. There's a Mac Snack, fairly new business in town that we're beginning to talk with them about opportunities maybe for some of our students for work and just to even just go and like shop kind of thing. We do have a contract with Lighthouse, which is a private school. We do have partnership with Mystic Seaport, where we have groups of students that actually went a lot last school year using the town van to go there and to work on get experiential learning and work on social skills as well. We also have a new unified sports program going on. It's actually a course that students sign up for. So we have non-disabled peers, about 5 actually, who signed up for the course, and they've taken that course with kids in special ed program who have IEPs, and it's going really well. It's basically like it's a unified PE class, and and we're really excited about that. And you'll see later, we're hoping to expand those kinds of opportunities. In the second, and also April's working to develop more partnerships through the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services and Department of Developmental Services. Section 2 on workforce development. We have SHARP training. We have some students that will at times participate with them to learn vocational skills. And they could be a student that is maybe not even attending Wheeler anymore, but they're still supported by us. We have students that from Wheeler that go to the elementary school actually and have little internships in classrooms. And that's a lot of our students do that, kids that receive special education services and kids who do not. It's a beautiful situation where we have a campus, where we have Wheeler right next to an elementary school. And as you know, some of our kids have participated in Cub Club as well. And then Red Onion, Raina's Red Onion down the street. We've had students participate in a work-study program there and actually get paid. So we have a lot of great stuff going on, and I can't thank April Christensen enough about her drive to build the program and just her motivation to do that. And it's really inspirational. Section 3 is on the attrition data. And simply, we listed all the categories of people that really April oversees, and the number of people that we have in that category. And then the number of people who were replaced. And is really, we have a substitute nurse, one left, one came. The BCBA left, we got another one. One paraeducator left, we hired them. Everybody else was stable. So that's the attrition data. And then for the recommendations for improvement, we really just want to expand one thing, paraprofessional, paraeducator training. We did a lot, April actually did a lot with online modules last year through the state. They were free. Things on like behavior strategies, role of a paraeducator, trauma-informed practices, all kinds of useful topics. And they were, while they were good, the feedback was we would like more like in-person trainers, right? So April's going to try to create more of that for the paraeducators moving forward. We want to formalize partnerships with MaxNac, with Giving Closet, other local businesses. It could be like job sites for our kids. And as we mentioned before, explore more opportunities through the BRS and the DDS. And actually increase middle school exposure to workforce readiness. Why wait? Why wait till the kids in high school start thinking about, okay, what can I do? Because they could actually have an internship while they're in high school, right? And then maybe really be prepared when they graduate high school to enter the workforce. Program enhancements. We want to continue development of life skills program at Wheeler. Expand the unified sports, maybe bowling or other activities. And just broaden the learning opportunities for kids, whether it's museums or the seaport, the nature center, and just continue to develop, monitor the program. April actually does a really good job with surveying her staff and families and using that data to improve the program. So I'm really pleased with this report to bring to you. And these are the required components. I know April will probably be attending with the other administrators in most likely beginning of October, first meeting in October, where they may talk about student success, where they might mention a few test scores and that type of thing, but we call it student success. And I'm sure she would be willing to answer any questions or if there were topics that you wanted me to share with her that you would like her to include in the future meeting, I could certainly do that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Questions for Joy?
I just want to say, I think this is really good. There's some really good things going on here that and opportunities are providing for the students. One thing I did want to actually ask about is you had said unified sports, and I love the fact that we have non-disabled students partnering with this, with students who have unique needs. And I know you said that right now it's in a PE class and that there's a plan to move beyond. Is that to be more in line with some of the other schools in the ECC that actually have traditional sports teams that go out and kind of play against one another in friendlies in unified sports competitions? Or is that just more something that you're going to try to do in-house?
I think it's we have to wait and see how it develops.
Mm-hmm.
I think ideally that would be great to compete with other schools, but we have to be realistic about our size.
Mhm.
Can we field teams that are large enough to do those competitions? But so I think time will tell. But I think we're not limited in our thinking about that, and that's a good idea. But we're just in the beginning stages of it with this like this PE class, and it's going really well. But we'll see how it develops.
Is there any potential for maybe moving it to like art courses or other types of courses where they're working with their non-disabled peers as well? I know some schools do offer that as an opportunity
Yeah.
where they partner up.
That's a great idea, and April's probably thought about it, but I will tell her.
Not to belabor the same point, but I would love to see unified expanded to the middle school. I know in Preston, they have middle school unified. It's not just sports, but it's a unified club. I know Plainfield has an incredibly active unified group at their middle school level. And they do regional unified gatherings. They all go bowling with large groups, dances, unified prom, a variety of different things. So there's so much to do there, and it would be great to see those opportunities given to our students.
Yeah, I think it's these great ideas for expansion, but I also want to celebrate what we're getting going now that we didn't have before. But yes, we want to always do more.
One comment I have.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think the workforce, I think expanding that to students is definitely something that would be helpful. Like when I did mine, I had a lot of people coming up to me like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. That's awesome. I wish I did that. And maybe looking at like freshmen and introducing it to them, or even middle school. So once they get to their point, I didn't know about it till my senior year, and I would have loved to do it when I was a sophomore. So I think a lot of students just aren't aware of it, and it'd be, good to teach them about it when they're younger, so then they can do something instead of senior year. They get there and they're like, oh, I got 5 study halls. You know what I mean? So they're just going and doing nothing. They find something that they like, and maybe even if they're getting paid, they're like, oh, I found something that I like. Maybe I'm going to do this after school. You know what I mean? To kind of educate them more and pick a decision instead of doing nothing in senior year.
Just to build on that, I definitely feel like we might need a little bit more of specific advising and counseling when it comes to schedule building, especially when you're going from middle school into high school, because a lot of the times some kids will end up where they're like, oh, I'm a freshman, I don't really want to take PE. And then they end up, they're like, oh, wait, now I have to take PE, whatever, senior year. And now I can't leave for this study hall that I would have had. And now all of my, whatever, if you're trying to do a work study, oh no, now I can't leave because now I have to make this up. And I think that if that is like a student's plan, there needs to be like a little bit more of structure, especially since a lot of the times there's students who they don't have an older sibling who's gone through the Wheeler system. Maybe we're introducing a new program. Maybe they're coming in from like Voluntown or Preston and they're not aware of, are there specific requirements or how our schedule building works. I know like for me, I had a little bit of a difficulty because I wasn't able to be placed in a health class during my junior year. So now I have to take it this year. And so now I have no study hall first semester and I'm taking like lots of hard classes. But I know that like if I wanted to do a work study program, I would have needed a lot more like advising to make sure that you have all the electives you need to make sure that you're meeting all the requirements so that way you can have that opportunity in those times. And I think that that would be really helpful, especially starting them younger so that way they're not stressed out in those later years when they're trying to get that done.
Thank you. That's
Thank
really
you.
great
I
feedback.
did have one other piece of information to share about unified opportunities that wasn't in the report. That we actually participated in a unified prom with Griswold last year. We plan to do it again this year, and that is with non-disabled peers as well.
That's
with
great.
unified needs.
I know that you have to give us this report now because the state says so, but I think it's so, I just think it's such good information. And I'm thinking back that during budget season, I was, talking about the expanded opportunities that April's developed for us as a school. And this really speaks to what exactly we're doing. And I just think it's so great. We're so little and we're doing so much.
It is
So
amazing. I agree.
I love this. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. On that agenda tonight, we just have to approve the minutes from 8:13. Does anyone want to make a consent agenda motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion about the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Right. Well, there's a thing on the consent agenda and we have consented to it. Okay. It was an easy one tonight. All I have on the calendar is that we have our next meeting on 9/24, and that we are starting in the contract negotiation process tomorrow, actually. So that's all I have for calendar. I took some notes on future agenda items as they relate to the policy, and I've been able to work in from past notes, like the agendas till I'm done to get in all those other things. But are there other future agenda items that you want added? Okay, great. There's still no public in the room. Is there any public comment online? I don't see any.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Perfect. Good night, everyone.